In today's episode, we'll learn why so many old houses have aluminum on their windowsills and trim, and whether it's a good or bad idea to remove it. And later, I chat with Hugh Siler. Hugh rehabs and restores mostly small cottages in the Old Town district of Orange, California. But first, I'm Stacy Grinsfelder from Blake Hill House, and I am the host of True Tales from Old Houses. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Here we are. It is the last episode of Season 7, and I'm not ready. I think this is the first time maybe I haven't wanted to take a break. I could keep right on going. I'm just having way too much fun talking about old houses and interviewing people and, of course, hanging out with all of you. But breaks are good for everyone. I'll be catching up on some behind-the-scenes housekeeping tasks and recording new conversations. Season 8 begins Monday, September 12th. And I am currently booking guests, so if you think you would make a great guest or you want to recommend someone, please go ahead and send me a direct message through social media, or you can use the contact form on the True Tales from Old Houses website. And since we won't be together for a few weeks, I have some things to tell you. First, Hot Sash Window Summer continues on my Blake Hill House blog, YouTube channel, and Instagram. Hot Sash Window Summer is 12 weeks of window restoration content, and the final week ends August 23rd. Now, August 23rd, it's not a deadline. You don't have to be done with all your windows by then, and I will most definitely not be issuing final grades. So no pressure. Just jump in whenever, and all of the content will be there for you when you're ready, this summer or not. Next, there will be some other good stuff on the Blake Hill House blog this summer, the usual project updates, but also a recap from the trip to Scotland and Northern Ireland that I'm hosting through holiday vacations. True Tales from Old Houses is pre-recorded, but if you're listening to this episode on or near the day it drops, I'm actually still in Scotland and Northern Ireland. So if you get a chance, be sure to check out the real-time fun on Instagram. And if you're not a social media person, no problem. You can wait for that recap on the blog, which I will write as soon as the jet lag goes away. I'm crossing my fingers that it doesn't last very long. And the final announcement today is that True Tales from Old Houses is going back to the Hudson Valley this fall to record 2 more episodes in front of a live audience. And you can be part of that audience. We had such a good time last November with Daniel Cantor and the Brinsons, and we received a lot of feedback that this gathering should be an annual event. I'm not sure I can commit to every year in the same location, but before I eventually move out west, I thought, why not? Susan and Will Brinson have graciously agreed to host again at their beautiful Stony Fort estate, which is the perfect venue for a small gathering and recording session. Now, I just got confirmation from Susan that we can do it right before I left for Scotland. So I don't have the exact date and I haven't booked the guests quite yet, but I wanted to give you a heads up that it is definitely happening. When I know more, I'll be sure to announce it on the website and social media and in the email newsletter. Now, speaking of the newsletter, I didn't send out any during this season, but I'll be picking it back up this summer, once or twice per month. So if you want to subscribe, you can do that right on the website. And if you're already subscribed, you should start hearing from me again soon. As always, if you ever have questions or you want to chat about a particular episode or offer constructive feedback about the show in general, you're more than welcome to contact me because I always enjoy hearing from listeners like you. All right, Q&A is up next. My guest today for Q&A is Danny Moody from Pro Historical in Tampa, Florida. Hi, Danny.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. It's so nice to have you here today.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, you were part of the panel of restoration pros on the last episode that we recorded live from Florida, and that was just so much fun.
Yeah, I got to listen to it this week.
Oh, good. Yeah. I had to cut a lot, unfortunately, because we talked for so long and we covered so many topics, but I think we kind of got down to the best parts of that conversation.
For sure. Yeah, I think you got the heart of it, the spirit of the room there. So it was great.
Well, I sure hope so. Thank you. Since this is the first time, though, that you've been on True Tales from Old Houses as part of listener Q&A, why don't you tell us really quickly about your company, Pro Historical?
Sure. Pro Historical. We're located here in Tampa, Florida. We specialize in architectural historic restoration. So really, it's a lot of carpentry, a lot of painting. We do everything from siding to trim to floors, windows, and doors. That's really our specialty, but we also do full remodels as well. I'm a licensed contractor here in Florida. Well, we have 2 full remodels going on right now and a whole slew of other exterior restorations that we're doing in this Florida heat.
That's excellent. And when I received today's question, I thought, ooh, Danny is going to know the answer to this one. So I'm glad you were able to set aside some time to join me. All right. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Today's question comes from Georgia, and Georgia is her first name. I don't actually know where she lives.
Right.
But like many of us, Georgia has discovered painted aluminum or some sort of metal wrapping her windowsills and some of the trim on her old house built in the 1930s. She doesn't love it, and she asked me if it was a bad idea to remove it. Now, from my experience, the answers to these kinds of questions are almost always simply related to how much you want to dig into a project and how much time you have to do it. But then the more I thought about it, I guess the real question is wrapping windowsills, pillar bases, trim, and such, is that inherently a good or a bad practice?
So it's actually one of my favorite things to do to remove aluminum on old houses, just because I think it reveals a lot of the original character of the house. There's always a level of uncertainty when you're doing that because you really don't know what happened behind there. I would say the first thing that came to mind, she said she doesn't love the look. And that's usually the first kind of like red flag for me is the aesthetic. These old houses have architectural depth to them, with the windows, with the siding, with everything on the old home. And I think when you do a wrap, it usually takes away some of that. So it's probably the reason that she doesn't like the look. As far as like it being good or bad, I think that it was really popular to do in the 70s and 80s to vinyl wrap, to aluminum wrap bungalows and old houses. I see that mostly in the neighborhoods that we work in. For me, I'm always taking it off. I'm never repairing it. And because you can't really repair it. That's one downside of it. If you have a ding or a puncture in your aluminum, I guess you can get like car bondo out to try to fix it, but it's not really a good long-term solution.
Everybody just uses caulk.
Yeah, just caulk it. Yeah.
When in doubt, add more caulk, right?
Or spackle. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, we're kidding. We do not recommend that.
We don't endorse that.
No.
It also takes away from the function. Given the context, I don't know exactly what her siding situation is on that house, but oftentimes they would wrap the siding and the windows. She's lucky if it's just the windows that are wrapped because that's a little bit easier of a project.
I actually know the answer to that question.
Oh, okay.
She has stucco. She thinks she has aluminum. Well, she thinks she has aluminum covered pebble dash or stucco.
Okay.
And in my house, I just have it on the wood because I don't have stucco. I have shingles, cedar shakes. So I guess either scenario would be fine. I think people find this wrapping all over the place, whether their whole house is wrapped completely in something new or it's just, spot fixes here and there.
That's what I was getting at with the functionality of the window trim. So like windows are built in a certain way to shed water. And almost always when a aluminum or vinyl wrap is on a window, they take away the drip edge. So it's kind of like a flat panel on there, which is not designed to be. And then oftentimes they take away the sill. So there's that portion that juts out at the bottom. It's the subsill. And that has a purpose as well. And usually that is trimmed off as well. I don't know. It'd be better if I had like a picture of it to tell her exactly what to do. Yeah, the good thing with that is you can pull it off on one and kind of get an idea of what you're getting into. And most likely that's what happened on, the rest of the window units.
Okay, so let's talk about the drip edge real quick, because drip edge, when you're talking about on the wooden sill, isn't that sort of like a little routed groove on the bottom of the windowsill? Then the water comes down, and then instead of dripping right off the edge, it might actually go back a little bit, but then get stopped by that drip edge. I'm probably not explaining it very well.
No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, so in more modern sills or drip edges, they do have like a little recess or cut in the bottom of it so that water can't drip back. In most of our historic contexts, it's actually not there. The portions that I'm talking about, I think it technically might be called the drip cap because it goes on top of the window. And it's kind of got an angle to it. So it's usually on all double hung windows or a lot of casement windows. there's an edge that kind of hangs out.
Oh, on the top. On the
top.
top. Okay. I'm with you.
Top and bottom. So I think that the drip cap or drip edge, take anything that's running down the siding, will shed off of that and then go in front of the window instead of dripping onto the sash or whatever you have. And then the bottom one is the subsill.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was all turned around. But my house has probably 3 layers of siding shingles on it. So at some point they had to make the drip edge stick out a little further. So like
Sure.
my windows have these extra pieces of wood on them. But if you've wondered why that sticks out, that's what its purpose is, to shed water.
Yeah, and oftentimes you'll see actually old style flashing where they would actually flash it behind there and then put the drip edge on. Most of the bungalows that I work on are 1920s bungalows, and they usually don't have that. They're kind of just made. They didn't have those kind of that modern technology of flashing. But I run into it every once in a while.
So did people use that aluminum? I guess another kind of secondary question that I had is, were they using the aluminum to cover a problem, or were they using the aluminum to prevent a problem?
Yeah, it's kind of uncertain, because 90% of the time I find when I remove aluminum that the stuff behind it's really good. It's really dirty and buggy and cobwebby, but that can be fixed. However, I just did one recently where we removed a whole face of aluminum from the windows, from the siding, and the siding was in really bad shape. So I think in that case it was okay. We're going to cover this up. But in most cases, I've found it was kind of just like what you do. Maybe instead of painting, or fixing or whatever, you just put this is the new aluminum. This is what you do, on your old house. So I think it was kind of more of a fad than anything else. Yeah, I want to know who the salesmen were at that time, because they got like everybody on the block at some of these neighborhoods that I work in. They did their job. But yeah, I think it was more of just a fad than anything else. But in occasion, you could see, okay, there's some damage here. Let's cover this up instead of fixing it.
Right. And all of mine, I'm not actually wanting to just talk about me. I'm mentioning it because I have kind of a similar scenario, but maybe something that relates to other people who are listening to this segment. So mine looks more like a DIY special. It doesn't look professional at all. Yeah. It doesn't look terrible. It just doesn't look like a pro came through and did it. It looks like, somebody who had some experience just came through and nailed it on. And I guess I've been worried, and I think that Georgia is worried too, that if she takes it off, she might be uncovering a can of worms. And that could be true.
There is a definite level of uncertainty. The thing is, worst case scenario, it can be repaired, unless there's some major structural damage that can get very, very intense. But best case scenario, it's in good shape, but there's just a bunch of nail holes in it from all the aluminum. And that's very DIY to fix. Worst case scenario is the siding is in bad condition and you either have to remove it, or as I've done before, I've actually put replica siding over it. Kind of started over, done a tar paper barrier, and then gone over it in small sections, not the whole house. There always is a level of what you don't know until you open it up. But the can of worms is always an option, unfortunately.
All right. Well, it sounds to me like it's really George's decision at this point. She may find something to fix, or she may find something perfectly intact and prefer the look of it.
Yeah, I would say to pull off a small section and decide, kind of get an idea of what that is. It could be different in different places, but if you maybe on one side of the house that gets a lot of sun or something like that, pull off there. And then maybe in the back of the house or in another area that's not seen, pull off there and kind of see what you're working with, see what kind of wood you have under there, see what condition it's in, and then determine what you want to do.
All right, great. I think we covered it then.
Yeah.
Well, Georgia, if you are out there, thank you so much for your excellent question. And if anyone else has an old house or DIY question that you would like for me and a guest to answer on an upcoming episode, please contact the show via the True Tales from Old Houses website, or send me a direct message on Facebook or Instagram. And thank you again for your time, Danny. I actually learned a lot today.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now it is your turn. This season, I asked you, what have you learned since buying your old house? And here are a few of your thoughts from Instagram. Alyssa says, the next time we'll look for a house with unpainted moldings. And I have to say that I feel this answer in my soul, Alyssa. So much paint, so much work. In the short and sweet answer category, Anne has learned what horsehair plaster looks like. Sharon writes a longer answer, and it doubles as excellent advice. She says, don't be in a hurry to do work on your old house or remodel. Sit with it, learn it, enjoy it, fix safety issues first. And finally, Amanda has learned that old houses really are better. And I imagine that there are many listeners that would agree with that sentiment, Amanda. Thank you to everyone who took time to tell us what you've learned since buying your old house. Your answers have ranged from practical to philosophical. And with the season ending, it's time to reveal the new question for season 8. It is, related to your old house, what do you wish you knew then that you know now? To give you some context, your answers might be related to budgeting or restoration and rehab, or maybe even the purchasing process. There are no wrong answers. So if you'd like to share an answer to the new question for season 8, go ahead and send me a direct message through social media, or head on over to the True Tales from Old Houses website and let me know via the contact form. Or, my favorite, click on the mic icon in the bottom right-hand corner to leave a voicemail using your phone or computer. Once again, the question is, related to your old house, what do you wish you knew then that you know now? And I cannot wait to share your answers. It's break time because I want to thank our sponsors, Carefully Chosen, just for you. True Tales from Old Houses continues because of their generous support. So thank you to the Window Course from Scott Siler of the Craftsman blog and Abatron. The Window Course is a step-by-step do-it-yourself window restoration program that will teach you everything you need to know to successfully restore your wood windows. I do offer window restoration information in bits and pieces, but the Window Course offers all of the instruction you need right at your fingertips right now. Hands down, Scott is one of the best teachers in the biz, and I have learned so much from him over the years. One of the best things about buying the Window Course is that it's yours to keep. You own it. If you're working on a window and get stuck, you just go back and review the information as many times as necessary. No more digging through YouTube trying to figure out which resources are the real deal. Learn from the best, learn from Scott. The Window Course is self-paced, so you can go as fast or as slow as you need to, and there are also several price points to fit your needs and budget. If you sign up for the Lifetime Access Package or Training Package, then you'll also get a free infrared paint remover, which is a $130 value. The Window Course is offered with a money-back guarantee, and I've got a coupon code to share. Scott is offering True Tales from Old Houses listeners a special discount. For 10% off, visit thewindowcourse.com and use the coupon code TrueTales. True Tales from Old Houses is also supported by Abatron. Abatron manufactures two of my very favorite wood repair products, Liquid Wood and Wood Epox. If you went down to my basement workshop right now, you would find Liquid Wood and Wood Epox on the shelf. Over the years, I've talked about both on Instagram and my blog, and I'm using Wood Epox and Liquid Wood throughout this summer to repair doors and windows, and even some sections of exterior crown molding that need serious attention. Wood Epox and Liquid Wood make permanent, cost-effective repairs anywhere you find rotted or damaged wood, and whether you're a first-timer or a professional tradesperson, Abatron products are super easy to use. The instructions are simple, and the results are exceptional. No shrinking or sagging, and the repairs can be sanded and painted just like wood. Follow Abatron on Facebook and Instagram. You'll find them at Abatron Inc., as in Incorporated. To purchase Liquid Wood and Wood Epox, visit Abatron.com. Use the coupon code TrueTales10, that's the number 10, to save 10% on your order. My guest today is Hugh Seiler. Hugh has been making waves with his innovative restorations of historic homes in the Old Town Historic District of Orange, California, located 5 miles from Disneyland. Hugh's can-do attitude is inspiring and contagious.
I'm Hugh Siler. I restore historic homes here in Southern California with a special emphasis on cottages.
Well, welcome to True Tales from Old Houses, Hugh. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate the offer. Thank you, Stacy.
Well, so many of my guests are actually from the central United States or even out east because, of course, old houses are plentiful and often affordable here. But I am a Westerner at heart. And so I'm really excited to learn about your experience in California. So I'm really glad you're here.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
You know, I've been following you on Instagram for quite some time. I have a general feel for what you do. but I don't know how it started. Is Old Town a section of Orange, or is the name of your grouping of houses Old Town Orange?
So it is the city of Orange, and there is a historic district, which happens to be the largest district of historic homes in California, and that district is called Old Town Orange. It is comprised of 1,400 historic homes within a 1 square mile section.
Ah, okay, that helps. That helps me understand more. So what was your background and how did you get started?
So my background is actually I'm a marketing guy and a PR guy who along the way decided to dabble in real estate. And then once I got to the point where I'd had enough of the marketing and online career doing online marketing for other folks, I started getting into old homes. So it started about 11 years ago. A realtor called up and said, hey, there's a fourplex out in Old Town Orange. It's been on the market for about 16, 18 months. It's in horrible condition, but I think you could do something with it. And I said, well, I'll go by and take a look. So I went by and took a look, and it was pretty horrible. He was right. And so basically it was up for sale. The gentleman had it for a price. 4 months later, it went down 100,000. 4 months later, another 100,000. 4 months later, another 100,000. Went off the market. I get the phone call from the realtor. I said, well, make him an offer and throw another $100,000 less offer on the table, and let's see what happens. So he snapped it up, and that was kind of my entry into historic home restorations.
How long ago was that?
That was actually May of 2011. Ultimately, the purchase was 4 historic tiny cottages, craftsman style, built in the 1920s, fallen off their foundation, and otherwise a complete and utter mess. But and which is partially the opportunity that I saw, which other people maybe were scared away from, was just the horrendous, just terrible condition that the places were in. So that was my entree into historic homes.
So what did you think when you first started getting into that? So you realized they needed a lot of work. Were you daunted at all, or did you find yourself falling in love with old architecture or the possibility? I mean, how did you come into that now all you work with is old homes?
Correct. And I've always liked that area. Just to back up 1 second. So the historic section of Orange, Old Town Orange, is 5 miles from Disneyland. So if you know anything about Southern California, Disneyland, and then there's this just incredible enclave of homes in an area here in Southern California where, quite frankly, most people don't care about anything old. So it's literally a piece of beautiful Americana that people come to, and I would, as a kid, go there as well. So it kind of was a natural progression to just kind of go, oh, I've done this stuff before, but just not in the historic home area. So that's how I got started. When we went and toured the property, I brought a crew of my team to look at it, and virtually every one of them, except one, said, don't buy it. This is just a disaster. Don't even think about it. And I said, yeah, but that's the opportunity. That's the fun. So I think part of it is I was too naive to really know what I didn't know, which is probably a good thing looking back, because I think there was a lot of merit to listening to those people, and I didn't, but I wouldn't change a thing about it. It's worked out great.
What did you think you were going to do with that fourplex? Were you going to turn them into long-term rentals? Were you going to resell them? What was your initial thought?
So everything that I do tends to be buy it, restore it, fix it to amazing quality levels, and then find people who literally just fall in love with old homes, just like I have, just like you have. So, that's the dream. There's a lot of potholes along the way to getting to the dream. So I knew that I wanted to keep it. The fact that I love the tiny cottages and cottages per se was like, right up my alley. I'd been a landlord before. I'd restored homes before, just nothing of the 100, 110, 120-year-old vintage. So it was not that far of a stretch. It was kind of a different product, a different animal than I had been used to kind of working on, and definitely more of a challenge. Definitely more of a challenge finding the right team of guys to help with it as well.
I'm not sure that everyone who listens to this show understands just how difficult it is to find pockets of old homes out west. I mean, like you said, there you have a unique situation there with Old Town Orange, and I think there's an Old Town San Diego, and there's an old section in Los Angeles. Every large city has one for the most part, but normally those areas, except for the people who live in them, are not as highly revered sometimes as they are here out east. Like we tend to have this like deep, intense, we love history, and anything that embodies that history, we hold on to tightly. And the West is more about like, let's try something new and let's do. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing. It's just, it's a really different way of thinking about old homes. So when I meet someone like you who's doing this as your work, I'm really grateful that you're still doing this, because so many times those buildings are just torn down or forgotten or just left to rot, basically.
So that's what makes Old Town Orange really unique and distinct virtually anywhere in Southern California, maybe within just a few pockets of all of California, is the historic district means every one of those 1,400 homes is federally, locally protected. It is on the historic registry. So you alluded to how some areas may have pockets of old homes. The issue is that if they're not in a historic district, then they fall prey to potentially being demolished. There is virtually no way you could demolish a home in this district. So that's the good part of it in terms of if you appreciate the history. If you're the type of person who's a developer who says, well, I want to buy an old town, but I want to put my own thumbprint and I want to build that's not going to work. That's the beauty of it is that you cannot mess with, I say Americana, you cannot mess with, Norman Rockwell's painting. This canvas has already been painted. If you want to touch it up, that's fine, but don't make a wholesale change.
I just recently had Leslie Bryans on. She is a preservation consultant, and she was talking about the pros and cons of being designated as a historic district. And we talked a little bit about that. What made your life difficult in the historic district when you wanted to make these houses better? Or was there anything?
Oh, no, it's definitely anybody who has ever worked on a house in a historic district will tell you it's way different and way more difficult than not being in a historic district. What that means is there's literally like a 120-page booklet of do's and don'ts for the historic district put out by the city and the city's historic preservation person. There's also the political things of I'm an outsider. I've grown up here in Southern California, but I don't live in the community. So I'm the guy who drives in 11 miles and everybody's kind of giving me the evil eye because I don't live there. Although I'm quite invested in the community. My preservations and my restorations stack up probably as rentals better than anybody's, probably better than most people's, owned homes. So it's just a matter of, I think, like people have to get to the point where they trust you, that they know you're not going to come in and do the wrong thing. The fact that I have a buy and hold mentality, the fact that you can literally see these places kind of blossoming in front of your eyes, because I buy places that are just they're wrecks. They're things that have sat as blighted pieces of junk that people don't see the value in. It's challenging to do the work. It's challenging to get it approved. But once you get a couple under your belt and people start going, oh, okay, yeah, he's going to do that right. And that's kind of the beauty of it. So for somebody from the outside, it's tough. It's real tough.
Sure. Well, I think anyone who follows along with your Instagram for any length of time will see exactly how invested you are in the community and understand where you're coming from, and that you're not just there to be a flipper and run away, which is what's happening in so many of these communities, unfortunately.
Well, I appreciate that, but you're exactly right. I mean, I kind of look at it as if you do the right thing for the house, if you do the right thing for the neighborhood, I'll get rewarded. And ultimately, the reward is not going to be the quick fix. It's not going to be the quick flip. It's a matter of I will get good tenants. It may take a few before I get like the ones who really thrive and prosper and love where they live. But ultimately, if you do all of those 3 or 4 things right, you'll get the reward. It just may not be as fast. It may not be as simple as you want it to be. But when you see the finished product and you see 2 people who really appreciate the finished product, there's nothing more important than that. And there's nothing more gratifying than that.
Sure. I have to stop you for just a second. Is there somebody else in the room with you?
My dog just walked in.
I was like, oh, he's saying something so wonderfully eloquent, and I can hear like this sniffing.
Let me throw him outside.
That's okay. Thanks.
Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Here we go. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I'm actually going to leave it in because sometimes I'll go back and I'll say, oh, could you start that again? But I'm thinking to myself, this is wonderful. Like, keep talking, Hugh, but all the while I can hear this like sniff, sniff, scratch, scratch.
Well, and ironically enough, T-Bone makes it into every one of my restorations. So in some way, shape, or form, whether he's painted in, or whether he's like in a mosaic, or whether he is somehow he's my dog that basically I got from the pound, and he's out at all my job sites. So whenever I do a restoration, he ends up somehow making it into the house, literally.
That's funny. So to everyone listening, please know if you hear any external sounds on Hugh's side, that is, you said T-Bone? His name is T-Bone?
Yes.
Aw, that's great. That's great. My dog Millie tends to make it into all of my projects too, but usually because she's brushed up against the paint or something, so she has like a little streak here and there or some dust or dirt.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, you posted something, or you tagged me on something, or sent me a message, I can't remember. About 6 years ago, you dismantled a building out east. Was it in New York? Were you here in New York?
It was in upstate New York, yes.
I want to know all about that. What kind of building was it? How did that happen? And what were your plans for that one?
So that was 6 years ago, right when I started restoring the block of homes in Old Town Orange. A picker on the East Coast alerted me to this really cool 1910 gas station. And so he said, hey, you could get this thing really cheap, but you're going to have to disassemble it. You're going to have to get it out to California. Are you up for it? I'm like, oh, yeah, heck yeah. So on a whim, without necessarily probably doing as much homework as I should have, because I also was worried that somebody else would snag it, I flew out. I disassembled this 16 by 20 former Sunoco gas station in New York, put it in the back of a truck, drove it 3,000 miles with the goal and with the intent being that would become my office and kind of storage area for, such things as paint cans and whatnot. That was the plan after about 2 years of trying to get it approved, get it seismically retrofitted, because everything here in California is 10 times more difficult than probably anywhere else. I literally just said, this is just too much brain damage. I could go buy a shed and accomplish the same thing, and I'm going to be into this thing. So essentially what happened is I sold the gas station to a gentleman who restores old gas stations. It's up in Sacramento. And so I saved a piece of history, but I wasn't the one who actually got to be the person who enjoyed the piece of history after it was saved. But that's okay. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't.
Sure. So it's still in Sacramento?
It is. It's in Sacramento as we speak. And the great part about it is where I was going to put the gas station, which was going to be my office. I recently just got approved to build a new cottage. So instead of having a little office that doesn't generate any money, I will have a 720 square foot cottage that has recently been approved, and we'll be starting on that probably in the next 60 to 90 days.
That's neat. Are you bringing something in, or are you building something there that fits in, is sympathetic to the area?
So it will be 100% sympathetic to the area. It literally will be nestled right in this historic district. There are a few people that are a little nervous because I'm going to be the guy building new in a town called Old Town. So the challenge is, obviously, how do you make something 2022 look like, 1902? And so we're up for the challenge. It's going to be beautiful. I can't wait to dig into that.
Well, you bring up a good point. How do you do that? Where do you start? Do you look at old buildings and think about what you'd want in your new build, or what's the starting point for something like that?
The starting point is literally looking next door. And you look next door and you say, well, what would be appropriate for this block, for this neighborhood, for this community? And that's where I started. And so ultimately, next door is a 1,400 square foot 1905 cottage, and on the other side is a 1910 cottage. So it will look something about 1910-ish. It will be a little craftsman. I call it a California craftsman because it's going to have a couple of different little flares that are a little bit atypical of a standard craftsman home. But it's just going to be a tiny 2-bedroom, 1-bath. I've been acquiring all sorts of old light fixtures, and I bought a complete bathroom set in lavender.
Oh, how cool.
It was just so weird and so odd, but I got the whole set really cheaply. And so I've got all of these parts that we'll snap it together, but we're just waiting a couple more approvals. I have the planning department approval. Now we need to get the building department approval.
Right, sure. And then do you have to also run it by the Historic District Commission, or is that included in the Building and Planning Committee?
It's a good question. And typically the answer would be yes. But in California, we have a housing shortage. And so there is an expedited, I wouldn't call it a loophole, but there is a expedited way in which anybody can add a cottage onto their property. Not that the preservationists like it per se, but this is a state mandate whereby we don't have to get their approval. So literally I walk into the city with plans, and in 30 days I get a yes or no, as opposed to literally it could be 18 to 24 months.
And it's interesting that there is this loophole that someone like you would use in a good way, and yet that loophole exists it could be used in a different way by somebody else.
It's a give and take. I mean, there is a lot of, I would say, there's just a lot of crappy builds going on, and some of them are not far from the historic district. And it's also ironic because the Preservation Association wants to get rid of, they are currently lobbying the state of California to get rid of, even for people like me, doing these little cottages in the historic district. So I'll let them fight their fight. My deal is approved and it's going to be there. So it is what it is.
Sure, absolutely. How many buildings do you have now there in Old Town Orange?
So we have 10 historic homes, and the one we're going to give birth to will be number 11.
Have you moved some buildings there, or have you always just taken over what was there and restored it?
So just the one that I alluded to earlier, which came from New York, brought it back, started to kind of get a game plan and get it set up, and then that was not going to work, just once again due to too much like red tape and whatnot. So the answer is the one that I moved didn't make the cut and is now in Sacramento. The other 10 houses were there in rather horrible condition and are now completely restored, beautiful, and ready for the next 120 years.
Well, tell me about some of your favorites. I would love to hear about your favorites. They're all different. I mean, it's not as if you come in and you do the same thing over and over again. They all, to me, at least what you show on Instagram, have really unique qualities.
Yeah, the unique part is, I would say the challenging, which means fun part for me, is probably doing the smaller cottages. Because if you've ever worked on a small house, I mean, any kind of historic restoration is a lot of work. The smaller ones are honestly even harder to do to make functional, livable, beautiful, restored homes. So I kind of liken it to if you've got, 3,000 square feet, you can just throw big couches and big beds and that type of thing. And you go, oh, okay, that's a great restoration. If you've got like literally 300, 400, 500 square feet, every square inch is critical. So there's a couple of them, honestly, like the two smallest ones are probably my favorites. I have a 16 by 16 cottage, 256 square feet. Came out absolutely beautiful. It has, a Murphy table from 1920 that folds down, literally seats 4. So you walk into a 256 square foot cottage and you could actually seat 4 for dinner. It's got a Murphy bed. It's got a hidden passageway that leads into the bathroom. We have another 350 square foot cottage, which I just absolutely love, that has 14 foot tall ceilings. It's all original. You walk in and it's just like, this is such a weird little fun place. But those are the places that you kind of hope get restored properly, because it's easy for somebody to just come into that little space and throw in a big refrigerator, throw in, kind of inappropriate items. And so that's the challenge, and that's the fun for me.
Yeah. Am I hearing T-Boat again?
He's relaxing. Okay, there he is.
I said his name.
Yeah.
That probably was like, wait, you're talking about me?
He's in doggy jail right now.
Oh, that's funny. I'm sure that mine is sitting right outside the door, just waiting for the moment when I open it up. So she'll just be there for me to trip over.
Yep.
So one of the houses, I think I remember seeing something about, did you use railroad lights or something really interesting? You're really into old lighting.
I am. Old lighting, in my opinion, kind of takes a good restoration and makes it a great restoration. And so one of the things that I do is I always try and incorporate not only period correct, but I try and really work in old commercial or industrial or railroad lighting. A lot of the old railroad lighting, and they come out of Pullman railroad cars, which were these magnificent designed, beautiful railroad cars. And I would, I scavenge, and I've got pickers that call me, hey, I found this really weird light fixture. I have a pop-up light that actually it's like a Swiss Army knife. Just really weird things like that I try and acquire and then incorporate into the restoration. So every one of the houses has period correct lighting, but I always try and do something even more weird or strange or bizarre so that people walk in and they're like, what the heck is this?
Well, I can hardly wait to see the lavender bathroom set because I imagine that's a stunner.
It's not my favorite. I wouldn't have picked it straight out if I were designing it just from the get-go. But it kind of just screamed, you got to do something with this. And oddly enough, or ironically enough, I bought it off of Facebook architectural site and paid $1,200 for it. I knew it was going to go fast. Okay. It wasn't my cup of tea, but I'm like, whatever, I'll figure it out. I'll sell it. In the meantime, there's a woman in North Carolina who is restoring a home and has contacted me, has to have it. The last time she responded, she offered $20,000.
Holy moly. She must really want it back.
She really wants it, and my tenants are going to end up getting it. So,
go ahead.
No, it's just that level of, sometimes you just got to build and restore with what what the house gives you, or in this case, what the marketplace gives you. And it's going to be weird. It's going to be, I've had people tell me, don't do it. You're never going to rent to a guy. It's too female, skewed. And I'm like, if you like it, you'll like it. If you don't, find another place.
Right.
It'll be cool.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really excited about it. And lavender is such an unusual color. I see plenty of pink and plenty of blue here where I live, but yellow and lavender seem to be the two difficult to find colors, but maybe that's regional too.
This is actually a Kohler, 1920s Kohler lavender set. And on top of that, it has what's called a dentist or a toothbrush sink. So it has your main sink, and then it has this really cute, unique toothbrush sink. And of course, it's in lavender, and there's lavender sconces. It's going to be lavender overload. We're going to call it the lab.
Yeah, the lab. I like it.
So that's the goal. But it could change, but I think that's the way we're going to go.
So what is your plan moving forward? What are you doing at this point? Just living your life and seeing what happens?
Yeah. And with the real estate market, which is so topsy-turvy right now in terms of, there's the market is insanely hot, but it's also right now kind of a wait and see because interest rates have gone up so fast and so much within the last 90 days. So I'm in it for the long haul. I'm not going anywhere. I don't see myself doing too many more, whether builds or cottages. What's happened out here is, inventory. There's 1,400 homes in Old Town. I'm kind of fighting amongst myself because when I get done doing a block of homes, honestly, it raises the value of the neighborhood, which kind of penalizes me because now I can't go find, $500,000, $700,000 cottages anymore. And ultimately what happens is the prices get driven up. So people talk about, well, I'm getting priced out of a market as a home buyer, as a renter. The same thing happens to somebody who restores homes like me. And I'm not complaining. It's just that's the nature of the beast here when there's only 1,400 of the supply and demand quotient.
Right. And it's interesting to throw out those numbers too, again, to put it in perspective for other people. You're like, I can't pick up a $500,000 to $750,000 cottage anymore. Some of the people who are listening are thinking, oh my goodness, that better be a gold-plated cottage for that price. But it's not the way it works.
So in terms of in the realm of normalcy in California, literally $1 million tiny home is not out of the question. It's fairly common. To find something nowadays in Southern California, historic, Old Town Orange, I can assure you there's nothing under $500,000. There's nothing under $600,000. And we're quickly getting to the point where there's nothing under $1 million.
And that's a huge reality check for a lot of people and a completely different episode about the whys and hows, right?
You can find yourself in a really delicate area because if your starting point is $1 million and you've never done a historic home renovation and you get stalled because of a contractor issue, a city issue, a preservation association issue, unlike a lot of areas where you can pick up an old house for $75,000, $100,000, you get stalled at this point, you're going bankrupt. So there is no margin for error. If you screw it up out here, unless you've got really deep pockets, wealthy family, etc., you could go down you could go down in a ball of flames in a quick hurry.
That's something I never even considered because you're right. You still have to carry the mortgage. You still have to carry your loan for construction or whatnot. Even if your plans later are to roll it all together into something different, you're still responsible for that while you're waiting for other people to work out the details. So that's scary.
It's scary. On one of the homes, it was actually the second to last home that we did. I had a home vacant for 2.5 years while carrying a mortgage. Why would you do that? I didn't have a choice. The house was in that poor of condition that to me it was more important from an integrity standpoint to keep it vacant rather than put somebody in it. And there was somebody living in it when I bought it. It was just too dangerous. Like the potential for somebody to get hurt, the house to catch on fire, I wasn't going to take the risk. So instead, I kept it vacant for 2.5 years, paying a mortgage of thousands of dollars until we could get to the point where we could restore it. In the meantime, we had restored the other 4 homes on the block, and it turned into a beautiful home once it was restored, but it was a boat anchor for 2.5 years.
Yeah. Well, what are your very favorite types of projects? The kind that just make you say, let me at it.
Probably the worse, the better. I've bought one home that was a historic home in Old Town Orange, probably one of the most grand homes, completely supposedly restored. And I learned the hard way, don't ever do that again. It was done poorly. I was kind of misled in a number of areas on it. So from that point forward, I've always been kind of a buy, fix, restore kind of guy. It sold another property and was coming out of the sale of that property, found this incredibly beautiful home, 5-bedroom, just probably one of the nicest historic homes in Southern California, honestly. That's what the Hollywood prop kind of looked like. But behind the scenes, not even close. Like the story was not even the same once you kind of dug into it. So what I learned from that experience, stick to the junk, buy the junk that nobody wants, and essentially work on that and add the value yourself. Then you have the peace of mind that you've restored it. You know the integrity that went into it. You know every nail, everything that went into it. So that's kind of where live and learn. I wish I wouldn't have done that, but it taught me a very valuable lesson and focused me on doing what I do.
Do you have any advice for someone who might want to start a similar business model as you?
It's a great business if you've got a cast iron stomach and a lot of Rolaids in the medicine cabinet. Honestly, if you want to create a business based upon real estate and historic homes, it's not easy, but it's very gratifying. It can be, I wouldn't even use the word lucrative. It's a steady Eddie. Okay. So ultimately my advice would be find the worst, junkiest home in the best location. Not that that's overly enlightening, but when it comes to historic homes, most of the homes in a historic district are in pretty good condition. Every now and then there will be something like what I will purchase, but network with realtors. Don't get locked into one realtor because, sometimes you got to know a lot of people because the historic homes, a lot of times the people have lived in those homes for many years. And when something happens, and it's usually a death, that's when the house hits the market. So if you can kind of network with a lot of realtors, get hooked into that kind of system, then, let it be known that that's what you're looking for.
And when it comes to phase 2, after you've purchased something like this, what are your deal breakers? What are things what are compromises you won't make when it comes to the work in the houses?
When people ask me, when will it get done? I say it gets done when it gets done. Because ultimately, there's 2 things. It gets done when it gets done, and it gets done when I'm happy with it. So, I think the worst thing you can do is self-imposed timeframes. All that does is frustrate you. It frustrates the people who are asking, and it's usually somebody who might be moving in. It frustrates neighbors. When you peel something open, you don't know what you're going to find. If I tell you it's going to be done in 2 months, and tomorrow I open up a wall and the plumbing is shot, the venting is shot, the electric is shot, 2 months just turned into maybe 4 months. So I just learned, don't set yourself up for failure. Just basically tell people it gets done when it gets done.
And talking to you, it sounds like it gets done when it gets done right.
That's right. And so, sometimes we get it right the first time. Sometimes we don't. When we don't get it right the first time, we rip it out until we get it right the second time or the third time. But it's not going to hit the market unless it's absolutely 100% done properly. It's not that we don't do it properly the first time. Usually it's a design change. I'll look at it and go, I don't like it. Rip it out. Start over. So it's a little frustrating for my guys at times. It's a little frustrating for me because I had a vision and it didn't work out. But when it's all said and done, it will be pretty dang cool.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Before we say goodbye, would you tell listeners how they can find you? I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be intrigued by Old Town Orange and your little cottages and will want to follow along with what you're doing.
Sure. Probably the best way is on the social media platforms, Instagram and or Facebook. You can type in Historic Home Row on either of those two platforms, Instagram or Facebook. One word, Historic Home Row, and you will find just an assortment of photos in progress, the good, the bad, the ugly shots. I try and be completely open and candid, and I will tell you when things aren't working. I will tell you when they are working. I will tell you when it's frustrating, and you get the unvarnished, you get the varnished, and everything in between.
That's great. And I'll put both of those, or your handle, your Instagram and Facebook handles on the show notes. And if you have any pictures, I would love, a few pictures here and there. I know your Instagram's full of them, but not everybody does social media. So if you have a picture or two you'd want to share, that would be great. I'm sure listeners would love to see before and afters.
Awesome. We could do that. No problem at all.
All right. Well, thank you again. This has been so great. I feel like I've had this wonderful opportunity to get to know you better and hear more about Old Town Orange. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate the opportunity. And if anybody has any questions, they know how to reach me. And I really like the fact that when people, get interested, I've made every mistake in the book. So just reach out to people like you, reach out to people like me. And that's what I love about the old home kind of universe is that, people are pretty down to earth and want you to succeed. So reach out and ask.
Absolutely. And give T-Bone a little scratch for me, a little head scratch, or whatever T-Bone likes, a pet.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening to True Tales from Old Houses, and thank you to my guests this season, Hugh Siler and Danny Moody, Natalie Hennigan, Jaya, Allison Hardy, Melissa and Matt Dunphy, Nick Slavic, Leslie Bryans, Paul Kenworthy, Emily Heller, Joe Thornton, and the whole restoration crew from The Gathering in Florida. Additional thanks to my Q&A friends, Alex Santantonio from Old Town Home, Fire Chief Roger LeBlanc, Diane from Holiday Vacations, Lindsay Jones from Blind Eye Restorations, Caitlin Parker from Bungalow Roots, and Jason Lamb. More gratitude goes to this season's sponsors, the window course from Scott Seidler of the Craftsman blog, Abitron, and Limeworks US. Without their support, there would be no True Tales from Old Houses, and that is not hyperbole. So please take a look at what they offer and be sure to use our coupon codes. And last but not least, to the unsung heroes of this podcast, Nick and the Sound Tech crew from Mike Me, Brendan and the Pod Page team, and Jason Shaw for the music, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I will be back with a brand new episode Monday, September 12th. And in the meantime, to continue the conversation, be sure to follow True Tales from Old Houses and Blake Hill House on Facebook and Instagram. For bonus content and special offerings, please consider becoming a subscriber on our brand new Patreon. And if you're looking for more information about this episode, including photos, show notes, coupon codes, and to request a transcript, visit truetalesfromoldhouses.com. Till next time.